I'm going to call to order the licensing committee meeting. Today is August 18th, 2014. Only board members who are members of the committee can sit up here. Other board members who are in attendance must observe from the audience. If a quorum of the board is present, those members who are observing cannot participate in any discussion that may occur during this meeting. So I'd like to move along and have introductions. Kurt, could we get you to start?
Good morning, everybody. Kurt Hepler, Senior Staff Counsel.
Cindy Christensen, Chief Deputy Registrar.
John O'Rourke, Board Member.
Frank Shutter, Board Member.
Karen Robinson, Chief of Licensing.
Linda Clifford, Board Member.
Kevin Albanese, Board Member.
Bruce.
I'll learn that. We're looking forward to working together this year on the licensing committee, and I want to thank everybody who's on the committee for the time and effort to contribute to being on the committee. Public comment session is now. The members of the public may address the committee at this time on matters that are not on the agenda, which is in the back. Because those matters may not be on the agenda, the committee may not take action on those matters at this meeting. The committee chair will allow public comment during other agenda items as they are taken up. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the committee?
I'd like to speak during the enforcement part of the committee. Is there typically be another?
There will be an enforcement committee meeting following this. So just so everybody knows, this is the licensing committee right now. Okay, Chief of Licensing, Karen Robinson, will now provide the licensing program update.
Thank you. All right, if you turn to the licensing section on page 1, you'll see our application workload. There's a couple charts there that show the average number of applications received per month for the past fiscal years, and then the total number received by quarter. We are finally seeing a bit of an upward trend. We had almost a 2% increase in overall application workload, so that's a good thing for a change. The next page has a couple more charts that break it down by the total number of applications received per month for all types of applications, and then the next chart shows it broken down by the actual type of application. On page 3, is the information about limited liability companies. As you know, we implemented that in January 2012, so we've got about 2.5 years under our belts here. And you'll see the stats on the number of applications that we've received. And the next page, how those applications were dealt with. Still seeing a pretty high reject rate. Don't exactly know what to do about that other than continue to get the information out about why these applications are being rejected. Then we show those that were issued upon receipt that were correct when they first came in, the numbers processed, and the ones that have been voided or withdrew. And again, the most common reasons are listed down here for why these applications get rejected.
Excuse me, Karen? Could you clarify for the committee and the audience the rejection and how we're going to be changing the coding? Because that issue always seems to come
The
up.
term of
Yeah.
rejection, yes. We're going to stop calling them rejections. Actually, I believe our forms don't really use that term. They say that they are being returned for complete, returned as incomplete. So we're making some programming changes so that that's what it will reflect. So it's not that we've rejected it and they can't become licensed. They're just, were corrections that were needed. Okay, moving on to workers' compensation recertification. You'll see the number of renewals mailed, those that required recertification and those that didn't. On the next page, it shows how those were dispensed with. We really aren't seeing much of a decrease in the number of people still claiming workers' comp exemptions. They're just recertifying to us that they still have no employees. So while I think we originally thought we might see somewhat of a decrease, I think it's still running between 55 and 60%. Page 7 is disposition of applications by fiscal year. It just shows how many we got in, what we did with them, whether they were processed and issued or voided, or if they're still pending, and there can be reasons, even with those old ones, why a handful of them might still be pending. They could be out for investigation, for example. Page 8, I won't go over the processing route. I think we all know that now. Fingerprinting. You've got the stats here that show the total number of DOJ records we've received. Of those records, how many of those had a criminal conviction, and it's still running at about 17% overall of those records that we received. Then you've got the total number of denials. We're denying about 2% of that 17% that had criminal convictions. About half of those appeal. And then the final figure is the number of probationary licenses that we issued in lieu of denying the application. Just to give you a little heads up, we are experiencing a great number of delays again from the Department of Justice. We've seen the numbers go way up. So we're trying to work with them. We have a staff member here that came from Department of Justice, so she's going to try to make some contacts as well, but we haven't been able to find out just why they're skyrocketing that way. I followed fingerprinting, application verification unit. This is kind of a new subject. We discussed last year the experience verification that was taking place during the application processing time. We had a few bumps in the road, as you all know, and we worked out some procedures. We did some training with the schools to show what we were looking for. We've streamlined some of our processes, and we're seeing some real improvement there. Now, apart from that, which is just part of the processing of a regular application, licensing is now reassuming the formal investigation process. Up until 2005, the app investigation process was in the licensing division. But when we rolled out fingerprinting, since we didn't get any staff in order to implement fingerprinting, David and his group was nice enough to take back the investigation or take over the investigation process. Now that we've got our fingerprinting staff, we've got a full complement of staff and they're all trained, we're now able to reassume the investigative duties for experience. It really is, I think, going to be a good process. Oftentimes, the criminal background process can go hand in hand with someone for experience verification. This will allow it to be all done in the one division. We will continue to follow the exact same procedures that enforcement did. We'll continue to meet that minimum 3% mandate in the law. We've done some real extensive training with our staff, and we're seeing that they're able to handle the experience verification much better, and we've seen a 40% reduction in the number of cases they have to send for formal investigation. And we will start tracking our stats. We're putting together the programming now, so you can expect in the next 6 months or so, we'll have some statistics that we can show how it's going in licensing and how many we are handling. Licensing Information Center, you've got the workload here. I believe in April, we hired a new manager, Nicole, sitting in the back. She's been doing a fantastic job, as evidenced by the stats here. The call center continues to exceed the goals that the board set for number of calls answered and the average wait time. As usual, we're always in a process of hiring staff. We hired 2 new staff in July, and they're now shadowing with the veteran agents and learning the ropes. We hired another 2, I think, back in May. They're now fully trained to go on the phones by themselves. So although there is a lot of turnover, we're doing a really good job keeping new blood coming in and getting them trained pretty quickly. Judgment unit. I've explained this before. These are the judgments, outstanding liabilities, and bond payment of claims that we assist in collecting. You'll see the total numbers of, for example, judgments that we process, and then it reflects the amount of money that we were instrumental in helping collect for the public. And finally, on the licensing part, you've got the number of weeks it takes to pull an application for processing. For the most part, they stayed pretty steady. App exam had a little bump in March, but that's to be expected. That's always our busiest time of year. But everything else seems to be pretty much right on track. So unless there's any questions, that's the program update.
Hello, my name's Daniel Cohen. I'd like to thank the board for looking into the issues with the license verification program. We have seen some progress there. I think there's still additional progress that can be made to help the board and consumers. I did have a few questions about the program. You mentioned that it began in January of 2013. Before the program was established, were there any studies done to identify the exact need and the purpose and the impact of this program?
No, there were no formal studies, but what we were finding is in some cases, the experience being claimed wasn't matching what the techs were finding when they were doing the review. So we wanted to set up a little bit more formalized process that was standardized for all the app techs. Some were doing it one way, some another, and you know, that doesn't serve our constituency, so we formalized that program. We've always been in the business of attempting to verify what experience that they're claiming.
Thank you. Did you look at any alternatives to this program? For example, with the fingerprinting unit, they can do a probationary license. Did you look at that, or maybe an increased bond for the first year or 2 of the license?
Well, no, because the law states they must have 4 years of journey level experience. So in order for us to perhaps ignore that, I believe that would require a statutory change.
Okay. Were there any other alternatives that were looked into despite this specific process?
No, not really. I mean, it was kind of put together by a group. We threw thoughts around, and as you know, we refined this as we went along.
Yes.
Because,
Thank you for
as you
that.
pointed out for us, when we first started it up, we might have been a little too narrow on what
and
we allowed.
We have seen a lot of positive progress in that direction, thank you. What's the budget for the application verification unit?
Well, there's not a separate budget. It's done by the staff that we have. I mean, at this point, I couldn't tell you what part of licensing is specifically devoted to that.
Is there a budget for the fingerprinting unit?
It's part of the licensing budget. I don't know that, and I'd have to ask our budget analysts if it's broken down specifically by that program.
I guess my question would be is what do you need the information for? I mean, we can give it to you, but.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the budget is for this program, so.
Yeah, we can get it for you.
Break it down by staffing, essentially,
Well, there's staffing, and then there's also, you know, the overhead.
overhead and.
Yeah, are you comparing it to something? Like, are you trying to compare it to fingerprinting?
Well, I'm just
or-
curious to see, you know, if there's actual cost benefit to the consumers. Because if it costs, you know, $300,000 to run, and it turns out it really doesn't save the consumers any money, it might not be the best option for consumers or for the CSLB.
Yeah.
We're not in the business of cost benefit when in consumer protection. I mean, it doesn't matter what it costs, as long as the legislature gives us the mandate to protect the consumer. That's what we're gonna do. I mean, so it really doesn't, that might work in the business community, but it really doesn't work for regulatory
Okay.
agencies.
Thank you. My last, and you actually touched on it a little bit, you mentioned that there's going to be some reporting done, looking at the metrics and stuff. Can you describe, like, specifically which metrics you'll be looking at?
Well, we're still setting up the programming for this, but obviously, we're going to want to capture how many, you know, applications are being sent for formal investigation. We do have that 3% minimum that we have to meet. How many are approved, verified, how many are denied, how many appeal. I mean, we'll be, much like in the criminal background unit, we'll be setting up that kind of format.
Okay, is there any method to specifically evaluate the effectiveness of the verification process?
Well, competent licensees, I mean, if we're able to verify the experience, we'll at least have a measure of assurance that these individuals possess the minimum qualifications. Now, going down the road, just compare, okay, did this guy get into trouble? Do you have poor workmanship? I think we're a little bit too early on to
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay, so we can't really look yet if the consumer benefit.
I'd like to just speak to that for a second.
Okay, thank you.
Because we're at the beginning of it, the statistics will begin to tell a story. As this is done and as additional public outreach, because there's already been outreach to the schools to help them understand, you know, this may be filling out forms incorrectly, or this may be incorrect information. And so as the statistics, you know, start to tell that story, you know, the hope is that the minimum 3% or more that's being done will end up resulting in those numbers going down of applications rejected, because there's going to be a lot more interaction that occurs from putting this in place in this formal way, as opposed to just having the 3% and then checking it not in such a structured format. So Karen's right, you're a little bit early, but we will get a story out of this. I mean, there will be a time when the statistics will tell us whether the program is successful and whether we're actually having an impact.
Thank you. When will those statistics be available?
As Karen said, we're going to start, we're hoping to start the first part of those in the next 6 months, build the metrics, have the input, get the right measurements, and then over that 6-month period, develop that, and then start those metrics. And it's probably a year before those metrics will tell anybody, you know, something that's useful.
Okay, so it'll be 2.5 years from beginning to when we have an idea if it's effective or not?
Well, okay, this is not a new program. It's new back to licensing, but we have always done experience investigations, and I would hope that, you know, what we found is it was successful, because again, it's our way It's our only way of really identifying whether these people have the minimal qualifications. So, since the board has always been doing it, it's hard to say that now that we're doing it in licensing, that that's going to change that story.
So I guess my question, I don't want there to be any confusion. I was referring to the program that your packet said began in January 2013, which is instituted the experience verification process as part of the application.
As part of the application process.
That's the specific program I'm referring to.
Yeah, and we are continuing to gather data on that, but I think, I'm not sure if you were at the training we did with the schools, but we did do the breakdown of
Yes.
how many actually were able to verify their experience.
10%.
10%. So that tells you something right there, that if of that group we polled, 90% could not verify their experience, that would have been 90% that perhaps could have slipped through the cracks and didn't have the minimal qualifications. So I think we are effective in weeding out the ones that really don't have the experience qualifications.
Thank you, and I admire the process. I do think, though, that denying 90% of people trying to get into the system and get legal and become licensed and get out of the underground economy and come under the jurisdiction of the CSLB is the wrong metric to look at. I think we should look at how do we get people licensed.
And that is our ultimate goal. Our first goal is to assist these individuals in coming up with the experience to get them licensed.
Okay, thank
We
you.
want to license every qualified applicant.
Thank you very much for your time, and I also wanted to thank you again for, working with the public and working with the industry to help improve this process.
Well, we appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, on that subject, I've always been a proponent of increasing that 3% to 10%, but I'd be willing to settle for 6%. At the end of the day, we want qualified contractors outperforming their specific crafts. So that standard, I don't want to see it ever diluted. And I know that you explained to me in the past when applications came before you, you saw there were anomalies or there was questionable data or a letterhead from another entity or a contractor verifying experience, that you pulled those applications. I feel very strongly about the 3% number is not sufficient. I know there's been budget issues in the past, but I think a goal of this committee and this board should be to increase that level of scrutiny to make sure we do have qualified contractors outperforming work for the consumers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Any
well,
other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to second Mr. O'Rourke's statements. I agree with you 100%. And which brings me to my question, the 40% drop in the formal investigations, can you assure the board and the committee that that's not a compromise to our standards and that we are making sure that these individuals are proposing and coming up with verifiable experience?
absolutely. And let me just say, the 40% drop isn't the formal investigation, it's the experience verification that's done by our application techs. The reason we saw the drop was we were able to more fully train our technicians so that they could get this information out of the applicants, they could review it and make a determination without having to forward it on to a formal investigation. So we have not by any means diluted our standards. We've increased the training for our staff.
Thank you.
And basically come to a more standardized way of looking at it.
Correct.
So it's not so, we don't want it to be subjective. And so by training people, we're getting a very standardized way of looking at this experience, so everybody's being judged by the same standard.
Absolutely.
Which is the best way that goes down. So I think the committee, unless anybody feels differently, is probably of a mind on this issue. So, okay.
All right, if there are any other questions on licensing or the program? Okay.
We were going to have a exhibit of the score testing. Okay, I'm sorry. Wendy Balvanez? And you're going to give us a testing program update. So thank you.
There, all right. If you look in the packet, pages 1 and 2 will have the tables, bar graphs of scheduled exams. One is by month, one is by site. We're in good position with our staffing. We have 3 vacancies, 2 of which are going to be filled next week, so only 1 left. Testing Division is releasing 2 new exams this month, and there are 13 different exam specialties, trade exams that are in the occupational analysis and development phase. The big news for us, however, is that our custom software for test development and administration has been updated. Score 1.5 upgrade was successfully launched in the Sacramento Test Center in early July, followed by Berkeley and San Jose. By mid-September, it will be up and running at all of our 8 sites. Paired with the software upgrade is the deployment of the touch screens. This has been very well received by the staff and by the candidates. Since the test instructions are a little shorter, because the work they do is easier to move throughout, rather than the mouse moving, they just touch the screen, it's faster, they're getting to their exams faster, they're finishing faster. In fact, with over 500 exams administered on the touch screen, no one yet has asked for a mouse. And lastly, an additional benefit to the upgrade is that it's now easier to administer new civil service exams at our test centers using SCORE. Would there be any questions?
Congratulations, that's great news. And I've seen it, so it is cool. So we are going to have a demonstration of the SCORE testing so that you can see these thing that Wendy was justifiably excited about.
The committee members up in front may want to maybe move back to the side so you can see the screens. Good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Kuhn, and I work in IT in the Client Server Applications Unit. And this is my co-developer, Andrew. Introduced himself earlier. A few months ago, Bill Gates decided he wasn't selling enough operating systems. So he said, Windows XP, no more updates. 7 years ago, we launched SCORE. Coupled with Bill Gates saying, no more Windows XP, 7-year-old hardware, we're faced with a dilemma. And that's where Andrew and I came up with SCORE 1.5. This part is our maintenance. Goes through, make sure that we're fully updated, that we're connected to the network, a little bit of flash, a little bit of fun. Okay, this is the start screen, and if you take a look over at the old equipment, you will see our old 17-inch screen, camera on top, little signature pad floating around over there somewhere. This is our new fandangled 1920 by 1080 high definition scoring system. Same basic concepts. Please take a seat, put on your headphones, and let's go. So go ahead and start your exam.
Hello, and welcome to the California Contractors State License Board Testing Center.
That's Kate. That is the voice of SCORE. She will direct you through a couple different portions of it, give you instructions.
Please verify the following information. Are you Rick Lopes?
Making sure we have the right candidate in the right seat. Just in case the candidate is told, hey,
Are you here to take the sample bank examination?
go sit down at seat 22. You're here to take the lumber. I don't know if there's a lumber trade. He goes down and he sits at number 20. He sits down at seat number 21, and he goes, "Hey, are you Andrew? Are you here to take the plumbing?" No. We have a couple little alerts. Warns them. Our proctors come over, make sure that they're sitting in the right seat. Little quick breakdown saying review, tells them what they need to pass. This is an 11-question sample exam, so there's no exam questions being displayed on the screen, and you need to get 6 out of 10. Gives them the little warning about pretest that I know that Wendy's group really, really loves to see. They love the pretest questions. So we go from here. This exam needs a book. They used to get to a portion of the exam and they would go, "You're asking about a book? I don't have my book." So we hit this right up front so they don't even get into their test without their exam booklet. Biometric security. This is where we take the photo of the candidate. Andrew's so happy about being on camera. And as you can see, he's actually having to move extremely far to get out of the picture. Our last little camera, as you can see, it's actually pointing more towards the ceiling right now. We had a lot of pictures of candidates with this portion of their face, with this portion of their face, or they'd just slide over a little bit and you'd get test center. You wouldn't get any actual photo at all. So go ahead and hit the photo. Gives them a nice little countdown so they can get ready. Is this photo acceptable? Yes or no? They could retake it if they want to. Most people don't.
Candidate, Rick Lopes.
Okay.
Welcome to the Contractors State License.
This is extremely shortened. This is about a 2 to 2.5 minute speech to where Kate goes through and says, these are the rules of the test center. This is what you can have. You can't have your calculators. We give you a calculator. Skip through that one. That's in the dev code. We had some fun with that one. They can accept, they can skip, they can disagree. If they disagree, they're told they can't test. So they have to agree to all the rules and regulations of the test center. Okay, this is one of our equipment replacements. We had the little signature pad that would go through and it asked them a couple questions, and there was always, every day, 2 or 3 candidates who went, "Where's the signature pad? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to use this." And it would increase how long it takes them to get in their test. It would take up the time of a proctor coming over and going, "Okay, it's right here. It's really easy. 3 yes/no questions." Well, we've integrated them into the touch screens. Go ahead and do a short signature. And so this is our signature area. If they try and sign that small, not a very good signature, it's going to give them a little warning. "Oh, that's not big enough. That's not good enough. Go ahead and try it again." And we've had very, very little issue with this. We were worried that some contractors would have problems signing, calloused fingers. It's touchscreen. It's difficult. My phone doesn't always respond to my fingers, but we've had no problems with this. And if they do, we have styluses for the touchscreens at each of the test centers so they could actually sign with a pen-style device. Demonstration. This is the guide through. Here's your question.
The demonstration that follows will point out.
And this is our little avatar.
Or part of this demonstration and go straight to your examination at
construction theme. So we're going to wait for it to get just a little bit into the demonstration here. Okay, so as you can see, our little avatar is kind of floating around the screen. He's going to talk about where the question is.
The next area on the screen is the answered choices area, which shows
Kate
A,
guides the candidates
B,
through again,
C, and
explaining
D
each
as
of the
possible
sections.
answers for each question.
And it tells them
In
about
order
their
to
time
answer the
and
question,
comments
you can
and
press anywhere
questions
inside
for
the box
review
that
and
contains the choice
go ahead
you
and
believe
give
to
them
be
a
the
score.
best answer. The unanswered question.
a little bit of a warning. You're ready to start. When you click OK, question number 1, your exam time starts. Okay. Some of the existing features that the original version of SCORE and this version have are the time remaining. Some people get test anxiety. They don't want to see how much time they have left. I don't want to see how much time I have left. If it starts getting down close, I'm getting a little nervous. So we give them the ability to turn it off. One of Wendy's other favorite sections are the comment section. We've improved this. They used to be given the option of select these radio buttons or checkboxes to tell us what's wrong with the question. One of the options was there are no correct answers. The other option is there are too many correct answers. They check them both with no explanation. So we took all the options away and we actually forced them to type in an examination comment so they can explain it. We also kept it on the same screen as the question. Our old form would actually load this custom form, and you wouldn't remember what the question was or what the answers were. So if you had a problem with a question, or you can't remember, which one was the incorrect answer, which two were the correct answer, you'd have to switch back and forth to figure it out. We kept it all up on the same screen, so that way it's easier for the candidate to leave a good, valid comment for our test developers to help make the exam better. If you don't know, that's an easy one, that's A. So we've given them a nice visual indicator of which answer they've selected, but we haven't made it so blaringly obvious that somebody sitting 2 or 3 seats over can go, I see what they're doing. I know what their answers are. Looks like the same question to me. And we've also, the entire box is where they can select their answer. The old version had a little tiny radio button over here that you had to navigate your mouse into and select the tiny little dot. This is one of the things that we believe is increasing or actually decreasing the amount of time it takes for the candidates to get through the test. So they're not having to navigate their mouse to a section and then down to the bottom right-hand corner to go next. Okay, this one's kind of subjective, so I'm not sure I understand this. We're going to let them mark it for review. I'm going to come back to this question later when you get to your answer sheet. So go ahead and go through a couple of them. Okay, go ahead and go to the answer sheet. So this is where the candidates are going to come and they're going to see a couple of different colors. I haven't answered it. Orange, I have marked it for review. Blue, we tried to keep the CSLB color schemes a little bit. And then the plain gray boxes are ones that you've answered, so that way you can continue on. So from here, you can jump to any question that you feel like. I want to go back to 9, back to my answer sheet. Now you can see it's changed colors, back for it. Back to 5. I think that's wrong, but okay. Okay. And so the candidate has now finished their test. Go ahead and hit score exam. They're done. You're given an option. We've had many, many people that have gone, hit answer sheet, hit score, and went, oh, I only answered one question. I need to be able to say no, but we're done. We've answered 3 or 4. Progress bar implementation was something new that we did as well. The old application would actually appear to freeze as it was going through and scoring all the information on the server. And there were always complaints. People would partway through try and close the application. They thought it wasn't responding, so we've added progress bars. And we failed. You got 1 out of 10. And we give them a little summary. If they'd had a second exam, it would go into the second exam with a little message saying, you're about to start your second exam. If you need a restroom break, please alert a proctor. And we are done. Any questions or comments? And we're going to have 2 sample versions over there if anyone feels during free time to come over and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I actually went through the test in the scoring section, and it really is very easy to use. It's pretty cool. Not as cool as the programmers, but it's pretty cool. So, Steve, can we do the sunset review?
Yeah, our sunset review report is due to the legislature November 1st. You have before you our first draft. The main part of the report is to answer the questions. All these questions come from the committee staff. Laura's been in charge of coordinating all the information. So basically, we answer the questions, and then at the end, are there any recommendations you'd like the legislature to consider? And I'm still working on that, but some of the things we're recommending the board put in the final report is to simplify the law, eliminate the $2,500 capital requirement that we require for licensure and renewal, increase the surety bond amount from $12,500 to $15,000, amend the arbitration law like we tried last year and failed. Try to simplify the home improvement contract law, which is about the size of War and Peace, and take another shot at trying to amend Business and Professions Codes Section 7031. What we'd like each of the committees to do today is if you have any questions or concerns, to let us know. We'll try to incorporate any of your ideas into the report, which we'll like the board to approve at the September board meeting. So this is the committee's opportunity to weigh in on the draft report. I think the main part is probably 99% complete. We have to get a few more statistics updated, but we're ready to go, I think, with that part of the report. So does the committee have any questions or comments?
I will just say I read through these, and I particularly agree with the Business and Professions Code section change. I mean, that punishment does not fit the crime at the point, in a big way. So it'd be really good to take another shot at that. And also recommendation 3, the simplification. We've been talking about that for at least the last year. I've been here probably 10 years before that. So I very much support what I've read through here.
The only question that, and I'm not sure if this is the right committee, but on page 21, the questionnaire statements, from 2012 to 13, it looks like we had a little drop-off. Do we know what, is that because of, on the performance side, do we know what's causing that?
I think Heidi explained that to us. Wendy, do you know if did we change the methodology in getting input from consumers? Am I making sense? Yeah, yeah. We had a slight drop-off in the consumer satisfaction from 2012 to 2013. I think that's about when we started sending out, using SurveyMonkey instead of sending out hard copy surveys. Does that sound correct?
I thought it was more like 2011. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it, but there was some kind of change in that time frame. We'll look at it and get back to you.
And just a pure formatting thing, and I thought the report was very, very helpful, especially for a new board member, so whoever put all of it together. Just on table number 8, carrying over all the headers throughout the rest of the report, I think would be helpful to anybody reading it. But otherwise, I thought it was very well done and very informative. Thank you.
Good morning, Richard Markison for Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors of California. We agree with the staff recommendation that the home improvement contractor improvement in the language is appropriate, particularly the service and repair industry. A service technician can come out to a homeowner, determine that there are additional repairs that might be necessary, and falling into the conundrum of not being a home improvement repair, have that certification, and yet recognizing that additional repairs are necessary. The other thing that we would recommend for your consideration is the statute on referral fees. We grappled with the issue for a couple of years, unable to come up with any improvement. The existing language is confusing, and experience suggests that it is a practice that's quite common in the contracting community, probably in violation of the prohibition. But that is an area that we would also recommend that you all take a look at for possible improvements. Thank you.
Any further comments on the Sunset Report? Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.